What's good, guys? Today we are talking about AppSmith, a very good tool, and I would even say a moderately underrated tool. Okay, and so in this video we're gonna have two parts. In the first part, I'm gonna talk a little bit about this specific tool, who is it for, what it does, the architecture, what problems does it aim to solve. And then the second part of the video, we are gonna be building a sample app with this tool, and you will see how easy it is to build specific types of apps. All right, so here we are on appsmith.com, and this tool aims to build, ship, and maintain internal tools, okay? And so when you think about internal tools, what are internal tools? So if you scroll down, you will see that internal tools are custom dashboards, admin panels, and CRUD apps that enable your team to automate processes and securely interact with your databases and APIs, okay? So that is a quick definition of internal tools. And really, what is an internal tool? It's basically a tool that allows you to work with data and to display it, to manipulate it. And so these kinds of tools, they have a lot of uses. Okay, I'm sure maybe even you who's watching this video, you're thinking, okay, I may have even some uses for this specific internal tool. And so another way of looking at internal tools is these are basically tools that allow you to manipulate data from all kinds of data sources and allow you to create all kinds of interesting UI apps that manipulate that data. And obviously these are called internal tools because that's what people on the back end do. They manipulate data, but that doesn't mean that it's only going to be useful for people working on the back end. You can build an app with Google Sheets. You can build an app with a database. You can make API calls. You can do all that with internal tools. You can do all that with a tool like AppSmith. You're probably not going to go out and build an Uber clone with it, but still, there's lots and lots of possibilities that you can achieve with a tool like this. And so you can kind of take a look at this homepage here, what this tool allows you to do. Build with 45 plus widgets, stay on board with theming, auto-generate forms, start your app with templates. So there's some really good functionality for dealing with data that you may even not find in regular tools, okay? Things like auto-generate forms. You may not even be able to do that with regular tools. So for certain types of tasks, these kinds of tools come in handy, right? You can write JavaScript everywhere. This is very useful. You can deploy reliably, right? Host on AppSmith Cloud, deploy easily, version control. And one thing I want to mention is this tool is open source. So this is a fully open source tool. You can just check out their GitHub, right? Take a look at this. Very popular. Over 20,000 stars, 1.8 thousand forks. So you can take a look at the code. You can kind of understand how it works. And you can see if this tool is for you. Here's another diagram to kind of help you understand what this tool does, right? So you have the UI, right? You have the UI on one hand. This is pages, forms, and widgets, right? These are the ways you're interacting with data. Maybe you're displaying data. Perhaps you are, editing data. Perhaps you're deleting data, right? You're doing all that. And on this side, we have the data sources. So you can make an API call. You can get data with APIs. You can post an API request, right? Just send an API call somewhere. And you have other data sources, right? So it doesn't just have to be API. You have internal data sources. You have external data sources. You can connect to Google Sheets. You can do a lot of interesting things. And above all, we have a JavaScript engine. So basically everything here runs on JavaScript. So if you can't achieve something with built-in functions, you can go ahead and just code it yourself. Okay, so very versatile tool. All right, now that we had an introduction to this tool, let's go ahead and try to build a simple app. All right, so I'm here logged into my own dashboard inside. I already have a simple app. Now, before I create a new app, I can go into templates and I can take a look at some app ideas. Okay, so here we have a marketing portal, a business analytics dashboard, fundraising CRM, applicant tracker, meeting schedule, Slack bot, employee feedback form builder, maintenance. So lots and lots of interesting things. WhatsApp CRM, right? Lots and lots of interesting tools that you can build. And for the purpose of this tutorial, we're just going to start a blank app. It's going to be, a completely clean app. We're going to say new. And now we're here in the screen in order to build the app. So we're gonna start with build with drag and drop. And so now we can start building the app, okay? And so what do we want the app to do? Well, what we're gonna do here is we're gonna display a table with some data that I have stored in Google Sheets, okay? And then we're gonna manipulate that data. Very, very simple app, but it's gonna give you ideas as to what's possible with this tool, okay? So here's a simple Google Sheets spreadsheet, okay? It's called users, and the sheet is called users. And I basically went on a site that randomly generates user data, okay? Very, very handy for these kinds of situations. And I generated what? 100 random users, okay? Random generated users that are designed to appear like real users, all right? So we got this. We're gonna go back to our app. All right, so now let's have a quick overview of what the functionality here is before we start and actually build the app. So the first thing we have is the name of the application. We can rename it. We can say my app, okay? Next, we have the pages. So these are, you can have an app that's one page. You can have an app that's multiple pages. It's really up to you. Here, we are on the Explorer tab. Now, we don't have any widgets to display. But if you go into queries, we don't have any queries either. And queries are going to be important for getting the data out. Interacting with the data sources, okay? Speaking of data sources, here we have data sources. So I have Google Sheets API, I have mock database here, and I have other things here. I can click this and I can add all kinds of interesting data sources. So take a look at this. Authenticated API, HubSpot, all of these things I can interface with and manipulate the data from there. Very, very useful, right? Google Sheets is great, right? There's not a lot of tools, right? No code tools that give you access to like direct Google Sheets or direct Airtable. You usually have to access these tools through an API. So this is very, very helpful, okay? So I already have a Google Sheets API connected. And so what we're going to do here is first we're going to connect our Google Sheets API to our sheet. All right, so we got Google Sheets API. We're going to say new API. And in this example, we're going to say fetch many, which means get multiple records, right? So if you click here, we have fetch details, insert one, update one. We're going to create a query called fetch many, and I'm going to say get users. All right, I'm going to call this get users. Okay, now it's called get users. We're going to say sheet rows. We're going to say users, and the sheet name is users. Okay, we already have the connection to our sheets already. Now we have a table heading row index. That's one. That's the first row that has the headings, okay? Very, very important for properly getting the data. Here you can specify what columns you want to be fetched, right? So we want all the columns to be fetched, doesn't matter. Here we have a filter, right? We want to filter the data. So we have a where clause, or you can do it by cell ranges, right? So the where clause is simple. You can just say, well, column name is less than or equal to or in or, whatever you want value, right? It's just a filter, and you can add more filters. Here you can sort by a column, ascending, descending order. You can set a pagination limit. So lots and lots of interesting things. But most importantly, we can test the data and see if we're actually getting the data. So I'm going to hit run. And as you can see, we are getting the data here. Okay, the data is here. And this is the data, right? So we have the first record. This is Lorinda Dominka, right? So if we go in here, if we go to our users, this is this account right here. Okay, and then we have Hedda Gagan. Okay, interesting names. So if we scroll down, we have, so as you can see, our connection works. We are getting the data. You can view it in a table format, JSON, or raw format. I like JSON. And right away, it's suggesting the widgets. So we have a drop down, we have a chart, we have a table. Really, really nice. So you can use this right away, and it's going to help you out. But we're going to do everything by hand. So we have the setting, we have the query. We can go back. We have one query here, okay? One query on this page, okay? Right here. Now, what do we want to do? We want to display the data in a table format. So we're going to go to widgets. We're going to search for table, drag and drop it right here. And now we have the table right here, okay? Now we can make it a little bit bigger. And so you have some sample table data here. And the way you configure the data is you can do it manually, right? Basically an array of objects, right? So this is an array. And this is universal. So you need to memorize this because you're going to see this no matter which tool you're using, right? So this means it's an array, and inside you have elements in the array. In this case, it's an object. So it's an array of objects. Okay, so if we delete all that and we type enter /, we can bind this. Okay, so we can create a new Google Sheets API query. We can create a new bindings. We can insert a snippet, and it's even telling us it's expecting an array of objects. Okay, this specific widget. So we're gonna say get users, and right away it's showing us the values and it's showing us the data automatically. Beautiful, it's done. And we also get filters on this table. We're getting a search. We can download it. We have records. It's a nice widget because it gives us a lot of interesting functionality. And so if we click on this, we can take a look at it. Okay, so we have columns. Which columns do we want to display? Do we want to make certain columns editable? We can make all of it editable, right? So now you see it's got that pencil there. All of it is editable. So if we scroll down, we have update mode. You can do it on row level, right? Pagination. Basically, you have a really cool widget, like a really solid table widgets that's designed to work with data. Like in FlutterFlow, you're not going to see like a table widgets like this, because FlutterFlow is about apps. It's about widgets. It's about creating widgets and working with widgets. Here, it understands that this is data, and it gives you all this functionality. Really, really nice, okay? So you can do lots and lots of interesting things. You can say, you can enable multi-row selection like this, and then you can do something with that row, right? You can do something with that data. Visible, you can, animate loading. You have all of these little things. And so now we have the data. So let me show you. So now we can hit deploy. It's going to deploy the app, and it's going to run the app. And now we are seeing all the data here, right? So I can, I have all this functionality. So let's say I want to search for Cliff. I type Cliff and I get Cliff. And I can, right now nothing is happening because we haven't built any functionality inside this app. We're simply displaying the data. Well, we have built functionality that is pulling the data from Google Sheets and displaying it here. And right there, that right there is quite an achievement, because like in apps like FlutterFlow, other things that are not designed to work with data, it takes time, right? You need to, you got to get the right API call. It takes time and effort. Whereas this is very, very quickly and easily. And so what I want to do now is I want to create another field, another kind of widget that you can select a row and you can edit the data there. Okay, so let me show you how this is done. Okay, so we're going to go back to our widgets and we're going to search for form. So form is nice. Form is a way to kind of collect fields that you're going to be working with. So like input fields, right? So I have here a form. I can put it something like in the middle, maybe something like this. I can edit all of this. And all of this data, all of these fields are available to me inside Logic. Really, really nice. And so let's go ahead and add an input right here. And we have a label. Let's go ahead and make it, I don't know, like, okay, so we have an input and this is going to be a label. I'm just going to say this is going to be name of the person, right? Because we're going to be editing the name or last name or something like that. And so for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm just going to keep it simple. I'm just going to say, okay, we want to edit the first name, okay? Now, this field, I wanted to display the selected field, the first name, okay? So it has default value. I can click a / and I can say, or I can even do something like this, and I can say, well, I want table, selected row. You see that? Selected row, and what do I want? I want the first name. Boom. And now it's going to display the first name. I can even test it. Look at this. I'm selecting, and it's showing me the first name. And when it comes to working with data and having access to data and kind of accessing whatever you need, this tool is amazing at it, right? Like, if you need data and you need to kind of work with data, because look how easy it was, right? I can delete that / and I can say, I can do a new binding, right? And I can say, well, what do I want to bind this to? I want to bind it to, I can bind it to this, but I want to bind it to the table, selected row. It doesn't need to be selected row. It could be, something else. But in this case, selected row, and I want to say first name, okay? And now it binds it. This is bound to that. Perfect. And obviously, I can edit it and do all that. But in order to do that, we need a button. So I'm going to search for a button. I'm going to drag and drop a button, and now we have a button, okay? So what is this button going to do? This button is going to execute another query where it's going to update the selected row with the new field here, okay? So how do you do that? Well, we need to create a new query, okay? So we have the label. Let's do update record, something like that. So we have update record. And now we need to create a new action. So we're going to execute a new query, execute a query. We're going to execute a new query, right? And so we're going to create a new Google Sheets API query. We're going to do that. And we're going to pick our users. We're going to say users, but not fetch many. We want to update one. Okay, so now entity is going to be select row, right? Because we want to select the row and update that field, okay? And now it's telling us spreadsheet users, sheet name is users, table heading. All of that is what we did before. And now we need to update the row object. And in order to do that, all you have to do is paste this code. You need to specify the row index so it knows which row to update. And then you have to give it the field that you want to update, because this record is going to be the one that's going to be updated. Okay, so we have row index, table 1, selected row, row index, and we have the first name. In this, we're basically passing the first name from the form. Form 1 data, we can do that, right? Form 1 data. And what do we have? Input 1. I don't like input, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to go in here and I'm going to rename this input. I like to call my input, so I'm going to say input first name. So now it understands. We know what we want to do. We're going to go to this API and we're going to say input first name. It already updated, and I don't want this to be called API 1. I'm going to say update user. Okay, so that it's clear. So now we have two APIs to Google Sheets. Really, really easy, right? And now it even evaluates, it previews the value that it's going to be passing in, because on our table we have the fourth row selected. So it even tells us that row index 4 first name delete. So it's previewing the data. It's telling us that things are going to work. So if I go back and I select 2 and I go back to update user here, look at this. I go in here and it's 1 header. Okay, row index now is 1. So if I go back to table and I select ham and I go to update user and I pick this, ham is selected. All right. So with, in terms of data, it's fantastic. Like, there's no better tool when it comes to kind of how dealing with data, right? And it's also showing us different things. So for instance, if we go into table and we pick this table right here, it's showing us different connections. Okay, so for instance, it's showing there's a one entity that's sending data to this table. This is really useful. Incoming connections, okay? And then you have two entities that are outgoing. So we have this update user and we have the input first name, okay? So you can see how the data is flowing. It's a fantastic tool. It really is. For what it does. It's a truly fantastic tool, okay? And now there's one more thing that we need to do before we have the whole flow working. We need to go to the button and we need to link that query that we did to this on-click event. And so we're going to say execute query, update user. Okay, now update user is going to be running. And on success, we can reload the data, right? So we can execute a new query in get users. And on error, we can show a message. So we can say error updating user. Okay, and we can say this is an error. Okay, so if it updates successfully, it's going to reload the data, right? Because we want to show the new data, because when we initially come to this page, it automatically loads it, right? This is kind of how this behavior works, right? When we initially come here, it automatically loads the data, okay? And so we need to reload the data. And so that is why this thing here, we are saying on success, run that query again. And obviously, if you run that query, this thing is going to be updated. All right, so let's go and test it out. The most important thing, we're going to deploy the app. And look how fast it deploys it. It's instant. It's very, very quick. It's kind of like AppGyver. Very, very quick. And so let's say we pick Darlene. Oh, how about this one? Gonzalez. And I say Gonzalez 23, update record. And now it reloads the data and we have Gonzalez 23. Let's go change it back. update record, and now it's automatic. And obviously lots and lots of things that I can do. Let's say I want a new input. I just search for a new input, and let's say I have another input. This is going to be called last name. Very simple, right? I'm going to say last name, okay? And this is first name. Let's make it a little bit bigger. And position, we can say, okay, we can even have it like this. Position top. Okay, so now you have it. Okay, so let's make it a little bit, let's give it a little bit more room. Drag it down, drag this down. So we have name. I can say, okay, this is actually first name. All right, so we have first name, and then I'm gonna bind this to last name. So how am I gonna do it? Well, data type is text. I can change that, but I'm gonna say default value. What is our default value? Let's insert a binding. Let's say this is going to be table selected row last name. Okay, perfect. And now it's bound. And you can even test it right here. Look at this. You don't have to do anything. It's a nice tool. I mean, you can kind of guess that I really like this tool, and we can rename that to update user. Okay, and now we can even update the last name. So let's set the input, right? We have the input first name. Let's do input last name. We're gonna go in here, and let's go back to our Explorer. Let's go to update user, and now we're gonna send another value, right? We're gonna say, well, last name, and these are names of the columns, right? And the column headers, right? Last name. So it's this thing right here, first name, last name. That's how it knows what we're passing, essentially, right? So we're gonna come back here. We're gonna say input, and I like how it auto completes everything. Okay, and so now it's actually previewing it. So in case we made a mistake, okay, now it's undefined. We can see what's happening, which makes it a lot more robust. It's a more robust tool. All right, let's go and deploy this app. All right, so here's the app, and pay attention how quickly it loads. You can do this all day. So let's say I pick Gonzalez Dorney, and I updated both first name and last name. We do that, and it updated. All right, so let's update it back. Let's delete 22. All right, update record, and now it's clear again. Now there's more things that you can do. This is simply a taste of what the app can do, right? So if you look at widgets, we have queries, and you can also create a new API, right? So you can say data source, and you can just do an API. So you can have a get request where you're getting the data, or you can do a post request where you're modifying the data. So there's lots and lots of things that you can do. You can even, send an email using an API call. You can get weather. You can connect to Rapid API and have a workflow there. And so once you create this API here, you can simply go back to your app. So for instance, we're over here, and we can say, well, we also want to do an API call, maybe send an email or something. And you can simply come in here, convert this to JS, and input the name of the API in there, right? So for instance, if I come in here, and instead of get users, and after get users, I want to run another function. And so once you define your API call, you're gonna have it available here very, very easily, right? Just like you have it here. You can execute a JS function. You can create a new, lots of interesting things. I think what I really want to make a clear point here is that anytime you are defining things on this side, it's going to be very, very easy to access them here. So if I create a new API here, I can easily access it here very, very quickly. If I create a new data source, I can easily access it there. And that's kind of what I was driving at in the beginning. All of these, you're working from a UI perspective. You're building your UI, and you can easily access it on this layer here in your logic layer. Yeah, mainly your logic, your business logic layer. You can easily access it, and this makes it really easy to kind of build forms and to work with selected data and to work with updates and create little kind of these models, dialog boxes, and get user input and stuff like that. Makes it really, really easy, and you can control how the table shows. So anytime you're working with data, this tool is definitely a no-brainer. Awesome tool. Like I said before, probably not the right tool for building your next, Tinder, or your next Uber Eats, or your next, etc., this or that, or any of the hot apps. But working with data, Excellent tool. So definitely check it out. It's open source. You're definitely going to find uses for it. And so I really hope you've gotten value here. If you're looking for more content, you want to take your no-code knowledge to the next level, check out the Patreon page in the description below. This is where you can view and clone all the FlutterFlow apps that I built on this channel, get access to live streams, get access to private Q&As, a lot more content coming up. And so if you're interested in taking your no-code knowledge to the next level, joining the Patreon community is a no-brainer. Definitely check out the link below. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll talk to you real soon.